Welcome to another of our community meetup, which is a chance for us to meet you guys. And we usually talk about themed topic. And my name is Trang, and today we have Maria Hill, who's our modern psychic medium with us. And we host community events all the time. So make sure to subscribe to us on Facebook or Instagram, or even visit our website. And we have lots of information on our blog and YouTube channel. And it talks about tarot, psychic mediumship, energy healing, astrology, and also our new Healing Through Grief and Loss course, which is designed for those who lost a loved one. So enrollment ends this Saturday, and you can check all that out at our website, thehappyhealingshop.com. And for tonight's event, we're going to take questions first from people that are in Zoom here as priority because they've registered for the event. So if you guys are watching on Facebook Live, head on over to the link that I commented in the comment section. So today's event was suggested by a community member, Jeanette, to see what spirits in the afterlife have to say about Black Lives Matter, any of the injustices with other groups and events that have been going on, and just get their perspective. And so Maria will be seeing who would like to come forward to speak with all of us today. And feel free to ask any questions along as we go, and I'll try to catch up with them in the thread. So we'll just get started. And Maria, is there anyone that would like to come in and step in?
Yeah, there's a few energies that are around. Actually, it feels like, there's quite a bit of, I guess you could say, like other dimensional energy, angelic energy, spirit energy that's very much been involved in helping us through this, and also like who are interested in offering their wisdom about it. And last week sometime when Trang and I were having a meeting about this, planning this event, in my head I was like, I wonder who will come through. And I heard the name, like a male, say George. And I was like, oh, George, who's that? Like, George who? And I have no idea why I didn't put it together till right now. And Floyd. I was like, George, who's George? Like, and I was like, I don't know, like, historical figure. I was like trying to like think in my mind, like who could it be? So yes, I believe that was the George that wanted to come through from last week. So so there's an energy. Wow. Okay, I'm trying not to cry because George is bringing in his heart feels heavy and he feels very emotional. And the reason why is because, I mean, we can interpret from our own perspective why he might feel that way, but there's a combination of things he's communicating. And one of the things he's communicating is that he is really sad that it didn't end with him, that it didn't stop with him, and that it's still going on. The violence is still going on against Black people and people of color. And he's also humbled because he never thought he could ever be someone that was, I guess, this important to so many people. He never saw himself more than just a guy trying to get by. Like he could have never imagined that what he perceived as his small life would have an impact, but truly he was meant for this incredibly powerful role. And he's just bringing in so much emotion. Like I said, I'm trying to keep it together, not easy. He's just very emotional and very touched, and he's actually just been kind of crying since he came forward. And he just keeps saying justice. And the thing is that he's very proud at the same time of being so heartbroken to see that there's so much violence still going on. And while he's so humbled by all the people coming together to find justice for his death, and also the many other deaths that have gone without justice, he's also very proud of the way people have come together He says not just Black people. He's saying it's people coming together to fight for what's good. That's what he's saying, to fight for what's good. It's not a matter of what you look like or where your cultural background is. He's saying it's simply fighting for good. And he says that, and he encourages people to think of it is to keep it simple. You know, fight for what's good in the world, and that starts with acceptance of one another and appreciation of what someone who has a different background other than yourself may have gone through. And he's showing, okay, so he's like taking off one pair of glasses and then like putting on another pair of glasses, and he's talking about, you know, take your glasses off and put someone else's on. And he's talking about looking through their eyes from their perspective. And he says you might be disturbed by what you find that you've been missing in your perspective, or you might be humbled, you might be encouraged, you might feel empowered. And he's saying, oh, interesting. Oh, sorry, he's giving me so many chills. He's saying, he just has so much emotion. He's saying in this time where we have so much connection through social media, people have never felt more alone. That's what he's saying. People have never felt more alone. And finally, people are starting to realize the power of hearing one another and listening to one another. And he's saying people are trying to turn around and use social media to document the real history. He's saying it's the true history that's been hidden under lies. That's what he's talking about. So he's saying finally now we have a way to document what's really happening, what the real history is, and we can rewrite the history that's been suppressed. And he's saying that it's hard to see these things every day, and he knows that it's emotionally trying for people who are trying their best to relate or understand, even if they don't come from a background where they share a similar experience. But we have to see these hard things, because these are the things that will help us to put on the other pair of glasses and help us to finally break down the facade. So he's very, very passionate, and he's showing, oh, it's making me really emotional. He's showing that he marches with people in spirit, and sorry, and he feels the power in that, and he feels the energy in that, and he's talking about how much peace he has now, but also he's devoting his life right now and his afterlife to helping to forward the mission of finding justice. So that's kind of his thing, and he's very much involved with everyone who says his name, who says all of the many names of the people who were tragically murdered. So he thanks everybody for keeping these important matters in your hearts and your minds and your souls. And he's just he just keeps saying how humbled he is to have been a part of this experience in this world, and the chance to be a part of something so important.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, George, for coming in to speak with us today. And you did mention that in this time, many people feel lonely. What can they do about it?
This is a question to George.
Yes.
He's saying, okay, he's talking about like the different forms of isolation that like modern people face. And he's saying we're so bogged down by the stresses of participating in a modern society that we forget we can do something as simple as calling a friend. So he's saying, like, don't forget to call a friend. Don't forget to text a friend. You know, don't forget to leave a voicemail. He's saying that in our fight for a better world, sometimes the things that get left behind are the simple things. And so he's saying, don't forget in all of this difficulty to make sure that you make time for a simple reaching out. And he's saying those people want that too. You never know who else is pining for that experience of just a simple connection, to know that they're in your thoughts amidst all the other things that are in their thoughts that are going on right now. And so he's saying, it's not just about joining a protest to show solidarity and community. He's talking about joining groups online and hearing people out, and also talking to people who are like you, who are seeking wisdom, people who are seeking to be enlightened on this matter. He's saying that he wants to remind everybody to make sure to connect with those that you do relate to, but have a common goal. That's really important too, because then that becomes, it becomes a journey that you can do. He's showing like people holding hands, like in a brotherhood and a sisterhood of people. And so he's saying that issues like this can actually be they could really much bring people together and help them actually feel like they are supported. So he's talking about the simple things. Don't forget that.
You kind of covered about a little bit, touched on the protests and Black Lives Matter movement, and how it's nice that you are marching with. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional too throughout this whole thing, and for him coming through. But what are your thoughts on, I guess in general, on the movement that's still happening right now, and just maybe how people are going about it? What areas are we doing right, or maybe areas we might be doing wrong, or areas that we can improve in?
Well, his general perspective is that he's saying people are doing what they feel they need to do, what they need to do so that they feel heard. And he's saying, I can't take that away from people. He's saying, I can't tell people what they should or shouldn't do if it's something they feel is right in their heart. And so he's saying that the vast majority of people protesting are doing just that, doing what they feel they need for their heart and for each other's hearts. And so he's saying, how could something be negative that's out of that level of care and love? And that so he says, I'm not going to use any critical words towards the people who are putting themselves at risk for this cause to be heard. So he basically is like drawing a line, like, I will not criticize people for doing what they feel they need to do to be heard.
And in this lifetime, just an FYI to anyone that's watching, a soul contract is, before you go down into this earth, there are, your soul kind of signs up for like certain lessons, or with other souls being like, we're going to have this interaction, this exchange and whatnot, and it's going to happen and make a ripple effect, etc. So George, was this your soul contract for you to die this way?
Oof. He's giving me so many chills. He's saying like a resounding yes. Like when he was alive, he many times didn't know what the point of his life was. Like he didn't know, he felt sometimes lost, or that he didn't always know what was next for him. And he said he never could have imagined such purpose. And when he crossed over, he learned that there was this all these experiences he had in his life, and he's showing me he had to experience these very difficult things. So he experienced a lot of very difficult things, which led him to make certain decisions, but he had to see that side of life, because part of that, he said, if I was someone who was sparkly clean, he says it's easy to support someone who is idealized. It's easy to support someone who we can lift up as a human angel. He's saying, but what this really teaches people is that even though I didn't live a perfect life, my life was one that was just as important as any other life. And therefore it didn't matter the decisions I made in life or what I did. What it mattered is that my life was taken away in an unjust way, and that's all that matters. So that's what he's talking about, is that it taught humanity to, when people say, oh, well, you know, he wasn't perfect or whatever, it's like, that's the point. It's that he was supposed to be someone who is imperfect. And oftentimes these people who have been lifted up, who've done great things or meant something great to people, have had those very human qualities. And that's what makes them relatable, and that's what makes them powerful. It's, you know, to show what it's like to live a life of struggle and to die in a struggle. That's powerful. So he did sign up to experience that, and that's why he feels very content with the life he lived. You know, he feels very at peace, and he feels he's going to be forever part of something so important, and it means so much to his soul. It really does. He's showing me how fulfilled and full of light he is. Like, he's walking in so much light. I'm seeing a lot of gold around him, and it's just such a wisdom energy, very wise energy. And, you know, he's saying this is another example of, you know, your soul is so different that sometimes in the life that you live. And it does take very, very strong souls to come in and to live a life like George did, and to die the way that he did. So yeah, it's powerful.
So there's always a part of free will that plays in our lives where we can choose what to do and change the course of things. And if someone had intervened, the police officers, and George, if you didn't die, would another death later on in the near future would have happened anyway, so that regardless there would have been some big movement of like Black Lives Matter or some other injustice?
He's saying it's actually like tragic that it didn't stop with him or just start and end with him, that there were always many others that died in such a horrible way, that died with injustice. And he's saying that, you know, he was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, that there was always more that were before him and after him. And that's where he came in with that heavy heart energy of, at first, of just being, just having so much sorrow that this isn't ending, you know, that this is still happening as this issue is being brought to light. There's more people being killed. And so he doesn't want to at all take away from the other people who have still not received justice or who are lesser known, just because his death happened at that time where it was this kind of critical mass. He's saying he wishes someone could have heard earlier. It could have ended earlier. So yeah, that's kind of his perspective on that.
Okay. So how can our, let's say, police force be better, or we see maybe police forces in other countries handle people in a better way? So is it, are there ways we or our nation or our government, like, is it that we need to fix our system, or we need to tweak it, from your perspective?
He says it's more than just fixing the system. It's fixing, oh, this is deep. Okay, so he's talking about how it goes so much deeper. It's creating a space, he's saying. It starts with creating a space where hatred and racism and all the things that come under the umbrella of hatred and intolerance just are not permitted for people who are supposed to represent the public good. He's saying that there should be no place for that in these positions. And he wishes that could be the case for all Americans and all people over the world. But he's saying especially not the people who are representing entire communities of people. He said there's no place for it from the lowest levels of our representation in our society to the highest levels at the top. And he's saying, and it's marred with dysfunction all the way from the bottom to the top. So it's not that it's just a broken system. It's a broken energy. It's a broken way of being and existing as a person. These individuals are existing and they're allowed to keep doing that. And so he's saying there needs to be, it's a long process where he goes, there are going to be some great advancements that we make through all this, but there's going to be people that they need to be re-educated. It needs to start when the children are young, bringing the children into alignment with the real history of our country, the real stories of the people who were oppressed. And he's saying of all people of color. And he's talking about how it's gonna take a few generations to really reset this, because there's people that are stuck in their ways that are, you know, full grown adults, and they will refuse to change even if it is made illegal to act in these certain ways. So he's saying we have to be patient, we have to be steadfast, and we have to be dedicated to this cause, and we need to teach our children so they can take over that job and continue this mission.
All right. So as all these movements are going on, what can we do as a collective now or how can we be effective in getting our agendas pushed? Whether some people, you know, their agendas is trying to get justice for the LGBTQ group, or like, let's say the domestic violence or unfair, like pay disparity at work. Like what are maybe methods or anything you see in the afterlife where it would help a lot to get these pushed?
He said this phrase, like multiply your voice into a chorus. So he's saying, so your voice on its own is important and it's powerful. But then if you find another person that has a similar voice and you put those voices together, then it becomes a duet. And then he's talking about it becoming eventually a full chorus, and then it's like an orchestra with the chorus, and he's talking about the whole entire, kind of like a symphony of voices that come together that have agreed to be in harmony with a certain energy and a certain message. It's really beautiful the way he's showing me. So he's saying that it's really important for us to use these community tools to find other people with those voices. If we want that change, find other people who want that too, and kind of glue yourselves together and let your voices be heard as a chorus, so that they cannot push you aside. They cannot disregard you because your voice is so loud. He's showing like so many voices that like glasses are shattering and blowing up, you know, like it's just like, you know, so he's talking about like they can't like live another day not hearing your voice. So that's what he's talking about. And he's saying it's happening already. And he's saying the young adults right now especially are coming together, and he says they're louder than ever. And they know it, and they're proud of it, and he's proud of them for having the courage to do that. Never underestimate the power of your one voice, he's saying. And he's saying that the other thing is to make sure you have support. So he's saying this does feel like a fight or like a war right now. And in order for you to keep fighting, you're going to need support. You're going to need nourishment. You're going to need therapy. You're going to need the right foods. You're going to need the right words of encouragement. He's saying, you know, you have to take care of yourself. If you want to be a warrior, you got to take care of yourself so that you don't become weary. So that's what he's talking about too, because he's saying he's seeing a lot of people not taking good care of their health right now while they're dedicating their lives to fight injustice, and he wants to see them be able to make it to see the fruits of this labor. So he's just talking about having the right support as well in all ways.
Not to take the spotlight away from you or anything like that, George, but are there any other spirits that have anything else they'd like to add or step forward, or mainly George today?
the whole time we've been talking, I kept hearing Breonna, 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 like, and so she's standing with him, but she's kind of stepped back, and they're kind of just together in the same kind of astral space, and she brings forth this very gentle energy, actually, and so much peace is with her, despite what her and her family have gone through. So much peace is with her because she knows justice is coming. She knows justice is coming, and I'm trying to tear up because that's how she's feeling. She feels like the people who have been fighting in their names are like her children. She feels that level of attachment to the people who have taken up her name in all of these, in all of their words, their thoughts, their actions, and for the support that's been shown to their family, for the people who want justice for her. It feels like she knows what's coming, and she's like, don't worry, like, justice is coming, justice is coming. But she wants to encourage everyone to know that she's saying, I know it seems like it's never going to happen because people keep fighting and they keep not being heard, and her family continues to be struggling and not being treated with respect. And her life, to other people, they see that it hasn't been treated with reverence and respect. But she wants them to know that there's a bigger picture here, and that there's going to be justice. They just have to keep fighting, and they just have to be patient. They just have to be very patient because it's going to come. And she just wants to encourage everyone to know that it's not all of this dedication is not for nothing. It's absolutely amounting to so very much. And so she's just so thankful and so proud of all the people who have come forth and decided to make this a mission. And so she almost feels like kind of like an angel, the way her energy is coming out, and she's just radiating these like love waves. She's just sending out all this love and gratitude, and she's just and she just wants everyone to know that she's at peace. She's very much at peace, and she's very well taken care of, and she's with family, and she's just very, I don't know, she just feels very at peace. That's the energy I get from her, and she has a beautiful smile.
Before we start wrapping up, does anyone in the Zoom chat or Facebook Live have any questions that we can take? And if you guys joined in late on Zoom, it's going to be on Facebook Live there, the whole entire recorded video for replay.
Don't be shy.
Or commenting to someone on Facebook that just joined on the later end, so they're trying to catch up.
Dina.
Hoping for a change at the top in November. That itself will be a huge start. Oh, actually, I thought of one too, just now. Did the universe or whoever lined it up where a death had to happen during COVID, and it lined up on like this on purpose, because that way the whole world united together in this movement? Like, did it have to happen during this time?
So many chills. Yes, as difficult as this is for the timing, how difficult it is for everybody. It needed that kind of pressure cooker environment. That's what George is telling me. and saying it needed to be a pressure cooker, because people have been saying this for decades and decades, and people aren't listening. And he's saying, so he's like, so we needed to crank up the heat, we need to crank up the pressure. He actually is showing his sense of humor. In order for it to be, for those voices to be heard, and for the pressure to be like, you can't look away anymore, basically. So yes, it was divinely timed in this way. And humanity set itself on a certain course over our evolution, and we weren't learning our lessons. So when we don't do that, the lesson becomes much more difficult. The dealing with it process becomes much more difficult and much more painful. So the more we face these things head on, the more prosperity people can have on the deepest of levels, not just superficially.
Deanna
Yes,
is
right?
commenting. Interesting, as we all know who is heating up the pressure cooker.
Yes, Dina, all these pieces, these aggravators, we can call them aggravators, and we can also call these events, they're kind of like catalytic events, together are, yes, playing their roles in bumping up the volume and the pressure so that you can't not see it anymore. I mean, think about how quickly this all transpired, right? Like we were like, like we're like, oh, stupid president, he's but then it's like, oh my God, all these other things just came crashing down. Because like, oh no, that's not the only thing you guys gotta figure out. So yeah, it is all orchestrated, and it's very difficult for us to deal with right now, but it is going to serve a purpose of enlightenment in the long run, but it is a bit of a painful process for sure.
Well, George and Breonna, do you have any last words or messages to your family and to all of us?
Yeah, as you were talking, they're like, oh, we want to tell our families we're okay. So both of them want to tell their families that they love them so much. They're getting really emotional. They're saying thank you so much for fighting for us, for our lives, even though we're no longer there. Thank you for fighting for the lives we lived and for who we were, and for all of the people who are like us who have not received justice, all the people out there who are risking their lives every day to have a better life for them and their families and their children. So he's saying, this is George, he's just giving this very humble, almost like a bow, just thanking everyone, thanking his family, thanking his friends, everyone who knew him for being a part of the change. And Breonna says that she's just trying to offer like almost like a healing, kind of salve type energy, like a calming energy to everybody who's so upset. Her family, her friends, again, all the people who are upset and enraged and sorrowful at the type of injustice she suffered. She's just basically giving them a big hug and saying thank you so much for caring. And she has visited everybody who has taken up the cause, and she also participates in these events and is with a lot of these people and helps them. So very much these two definitely act like guardians for sure.
That's so sweet. Well, there's no other questions, so I would like to thank both of you, Breonna and George, for taking the time to speak with us today. What a lovely surprise. And thank you for coming into this world and sacrificing for the greater good. So, and thank you, Maria, for taking time to bring these spirits in and channeling for us. And to everyone else, we hope that you guys find that tonight's message is to be helpful and insightful as we continue to move on through this year. And that's it. If you want to book a private session with us or even know more about us, again, you can always check us out at thehappyhealingshop.com. And that's it. Thanks, everyone. And Have a good night.